Hey guys, so today I'm going to be taking a look at the beta version of Linux Mint 18 Mate Edition. Now that Ubuntu 16.04 is out, you can expect quite a lot of 16.04 based distributions to start working their way into the public sphere right about now, and Linux Mint is no exception. So because this is like a full release, it's gone from 17.3 to 18.0 effectively, there are going to be a number of pretty sizable changes, not just under the hood, but also to the UI elements. So what Mint aimed to do back in the day, and I still, for all intents and purposes, assume that the aim is the same, is to give a traditional desktop paradigm that's as easy to get working out of the box as possible. Back in the day, Linux Mint was particularly appealing in the first couple of versions because you didn't have to worry about the faff of installing codecs to get DVDs and whatnot to play. Now, in version 18, it's probably worthwhile to point out that version 18 doesn't actually come with codecs installed on the disk, although there is an option in the installer to install them as you go along. My assumption for this is because in a number of countries, including codecs in your distribution is against copyright law, and some countries it isn't. So if you want your distribution to be as popular and successful in as many countries as possible, then sort of logic dictates that it would fit within as many countries' laws as possible. So that's why I assume, now that Linux Mint is gaining real traction, that they're deciding to not include the codecs for risk of a lawsuit, which I guess for all intents and purposes is sensible, especially considering how easy the alternative is. So, what can we expect in 18 that we didn't get with Linux Mint 17.3? And 17.3 was a pretty highly acclaimed distribution, so the competition is pretty stiff. Okay, so this comes with Mate 1.14 with improved GTK support, touchpad configuration improvements, Python extensions in Kaggia can now be managed separately. All three window focus modes are selectable. I don't fully know what that means. I think that's just when you hover over a window and it gives it focus. The panel now has the ability to change icon sizes. The volume brightness OCD can now be enabled, disabled. Updated translations. I suppose that's not massive in the way of upgrades. I think it's available to get Mint 1.14 on Ubuntu Mate as well. Sorry if I mispronounced Mate as well. It's just an accident. Xapps. Okay, so Xapps, again, there's been a few people talking about Xapps already. Basically, what Xapps are doing is that they're taking a number of apps, forking them, and then making them backwards compatible, making them sort of desktop agnostic, or at least within the confines of GTK desktops, give them HI, high definition support, basically. And that sort of have a very traditional layout, and that makes a lot of sense because there still are a lot of Windows XP users coming over to Linux, and familiar desktop paradigms are they're not necessarily going to be top of the list of things that they want and need, but they're certainly going to be they're going to make the transition from Windows to Linux easier, and you need to make that as easy as possible for lest you scare people away. So yes, so they're very similar to what we might have seen before. As GTK3 desktop apps from Mate and from XFCE start developing, we might see them fork off into very different looks. But I gotta say, is there really that much of a difference between the desktop app, the X apps here, and the apps in Mate that come, or the apps that come in XFCE? Well, obviously not, because they've obviously been directly forked from it. But in the future, it may be the case. It does certainly seem like they are doing a lot of work that might not necessarily bear the fruits that you expect, but I'm always open to innovation. So these are an example. You got Totem Player there, you got Photo Manager there, PDF Reader, Image Viewer, all pretty basic stuff. The Update Manager. Okay, so the Update Manager has seen some interesting improvements. It now makes the end user a little bit more familiar with the different levels and what they mean, and you are sort of asked and encouraged to accept levels that you feel are suitable for your use case as well. So it's not so if you want to update the kernel, which you previously were discouraged from doing, although you could still do that, it's now a lot easier. Linux Mint tend to refrain from updating the kernel because once you've got a working kernel, they consider the likelihood of any security vulnerabilities to come out and cause you to be in any way vulnerable to be insignificant compared to the security risk that you take from upgrading a kernel, because if you mess that up, it can be very difficult, particularly for inexperienced users, to rectify that particular problem. So they definitely put stability right at the list of priorities here, whereas Ubuntu might put newer software slightly ahead because they have a 6-month release cycle, whereas although Linux Mint does have a 6-month release cycle, the sort of the incremental releases, the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 releases, they're only really they're only minor improvements. The bulk of what's under the hoods is going to be what is effectively this distribution. You can install this distribution for a couple of years and still be really quite good, still be quite safe. You can expect it to work. Another big thing that they've come forward with is Mint Y, this new set of themes, which admittedly look quite good, but they definitely seem to have some kind of teething troubles with the implementation of this theme. Now, this is still a beta version of Mint, so it's very important to give benefit of the doubt when possible. But as you can see, for example, if I just minimize this, I've got some of the old X apps here out. So this is the example of the Mint Y theme. One of the things I'm not the biggest fan of, and this is flat themes in general, is that it's often very easy for the windows to kind of melt together a bit like this, which breaks up the vivid shapes. I tend to, things that pop out tend to be a bit more easier for me to see, but that aside, I'm not a huge fusspot on these kind of things. So this is an example of where the Mint Y theme doesn't really sort of set up correctly. You've got dark icons on a dark background here. And then you've got dark icons on the light menu, and then as you can see here in the taskbar, you've got dark icons. And I don't think it is possible, but I could be very, very wrong, to change to an appropriate icon theme that looks right. Icons, icons, icons. So you've only got Mint Y. You could change. I suppose you could change to a Mint X theme. You'd need to log out and log back in for the taskbar icons to work, and I think you might need to Mint X Dark. Does that Mint Y? Okay, so if you go with Mint Y, then you should have, you go with the older icon theme. The icons are oh well, yeah. So basically, you might need to mess around with some of the icon themes to get what looks good and get things working. This might just be because it's a beta. This might be because it's a new theme. They do include the Mint X theme by default. The theme that you boot up is Mint X, which is the one that they've been using for years without any bugs or problems with it. The Mint Y theme, like I've noticed a few inconsistencies, dark icons on dark backgrounds and that kind of thing. But could of course be sorted out. And they've got some artwork improvements as well, so that's always nice. Okay, and it comes of course with the Firefox browsers. You can see me browsing through here. So what does that leave us with the desktop? This is the control panel for Mate. I've always liked to have I've always liked the Mate control panel. You've got the driver manager here, so if you've got NVIDIA drivers or you've got anything that requires proprietary drivers, you can install them really easily here. You've got Synaptic Package Manager, so if you just want to get to the bare bones of an installer and not have to go to the command line, that's very useful too. So this is the notepad. If I shut this open and reopen it, text editor. Okay, I'm probably still going to have to mess around a bit with the icons here to get them to work. But this is an example of the desktop app. This is basically Pluma. XED is what they've called it, 1.05, a small and lightweight text editor. This is a basic calculator. It's from the same series of apps. This is a bit more GTK3 looking, so they don't have the menu, the title bars and all that kind of stuff. But it's a calculator, so I guess that's significantly less required. The Mate desktop is incredibly customizable. You can set it up so you can have menus on the top, menus on the bottom, menus on the left, menus on the right. This was what GNOME 2 used to be. This is of course the update manager. You can change your software sources, all that kind of stuff. It's very easy. Like, this is just the basic desktop, and new users can really just expect a very Windows XP-esque system, really. So, what do I think of it? I really like it. I really like Linux Mint in general. It seems like they've taken a very criticised Ubuntu base and certainly fixed a few of the minor bugs and certainly given it a bit of polish. It's clear that if you stuck to the Mint X theme, or you worked out a theme that was a bit more to your style, then that's the only stickler for me is that their Mint Y theme is just, it's a little bit inconsistent in certain places. It's a little bit I don't use the term broken because it doesn't break functionality, but it does look unideal in places. Maybe they'll fix this for the final release, maybe for the 0.1 release, whatever it may be. But since the Mint X theme is actually standard, and I've actually changed it to the Mint Y theme, then it will sort of be very polished and look quite easy, and quite easy to use and quite easy to get to grips with out of the box. Of course, the biggest criticism I've always had with Linux Mint is they've got two flagship distributions. One called Cinnamon, one called Mate, that most people are going to read as Mate, which there is a minor allusion to the difference. That Mate is a bit more stable, whereas Cinnamon is a bit more sleek. That distinction for most people is it's not gonna fly, and it would be nice if you just had one distribution that you handed out to everyone, and then maybe a few community distributions if there was the requirement for it on the side. I liked when I reviewed Elementary OS yesterday. That certainly did seem like it filled Mint's old place of being user-friendly and straightforward and simple and easy to use, and it seems like Elementary is actually stepping into Mint's shoes, because this desktop is much more customizable than the Elementary one, and this is really, whereas it used to be a user-friendly Linux distribution, it used to be Ubuntu, but with some user-friendly improvements and some added polish. But it does seem that the Elementary has now taken that space in a very interesting way. Because Mate, I mean, I would choose. If I was Linux Mint, I would pick a desktop and I'd run with it. I would choose Mate because it's wide. It's more widely worked on than Cinnamon. But Mate is a customizable desktop. It's not designed for it to be then deployed and then everyone to expect to fill within the workflow of the desktop environment. Whereas Mate is designed to mold around your way of working. But all in all, it's a very straightforward, distribution. It works pretty well. Performance has always been good. It installs on just about anything. But it really is a toss-up between this and Ubuntu Mate. One more thing that I should let you guys know: the software manager. The software manager is actually pretty good on this distribution. Pretty good indeed. I'll let it load up. But this is a fine distribution, and I feel like I'm singing Linux distributions' praises all the time now, because most distributions seem to be at a very good working standard that I'd be happy to deploy on just about anyone's computer and expect them to be able to use without problem. And Linux Mint, of course, is no exception, but it's among a growing number of distributions. And whereas it's the most popular distribution on DistroWatch right now, and probably the top 5 within the world, at least the world of the desktop, It's Mint's to lose at this point, and what I see here with Linux Mint 18 is just the next stage of Linux Mint 17, which is, in my mind, what Linux Mint want to do. They don't want drastic and radical improvements, even between big numbered releases. So a lot of people have said on this channel that Linux Mint is a very boring distribution. It experiments very little, and it seems to make a certain amount of effort to retain the status quo in terms of the desktop paradigm and user workflow. And if that's the kind of person, if you're the kind of person that thought that Windows XP was a great distribution and only need incremental improvements and under the hood improvements, this is the distribution for you. This is the Windows XP reincarnated, and and made to stay alive for a very long time. And so this is a very good software manager as well. I've always thought that this is quite good. It could do with a little more description. It could do with a little more explanation of what all these FileZilla. Well, it gives you a bit of a description. It gives you Skype, Deluge, Wireshark, Bluefish. So it's very easy to navigate, and very easy to find what you need here. It's one of those package managers that it doesn't give you any bells and whistles. It doesn't give you any information you don't need. What's in the featured packages? So you got Wine, GIMP, Gparted, VLC, Audacity, Skype. And what I do like about it as well is, I think if you double click on it, that takes you to is that it gives you a star ranking and reviews. This is something I want to see in every distribution. So there you go. This is exactly what I want to see. I want to see package managers with reviews at the bottom and star ratings. I think would be an excellent addition to any, because if there's a new task that I want to do, a new job that I haven't needed to do before, and I wanted to use like the industry standard application, I just wanted to use whatever everyone else was using, whatever was the most well supported, whatever like the most other people who were currently doing that job on that piece of software. And so I'd want to find the most popular and most widely used piece of software on the list. I might want to experiment later on. I might want to try different software out later on. But if I just want to get a job done and I just want to know the most popular piece of software to do said job, add a few comments to contextualize it and to describe, a little more about it and a little bit about what's strong about it, what's weak about it. So again, this is definitely one of the best software managers in the game. It doesn't hold your hand, which for new users might be an issue, but for a user that just wants to click, install, this is what we got. This is brilliant, perfect. So it's a fine distribution. If you want something to install onto a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle's computer that they just need up and running and working, and the basic amenities, plus maybe even a few more, because the software selection on this is one of the best in any of the desktop Linuxes. But it's in a damn competing marketplace between Elementary on the other side and a growing increase in user friendliness on Ubuntu on the other. And not to mention, of course, we're seeing a lot of people turn to Debian now. People who want to get more to the bare bones of the system and want to get rid of a lot of the user friendly tools on top and get straight into pure Linux, which is quite interesting as well. So a solid distribution. I feel that the theming breakages have negatively impacted this little first impressions review, and I feel the reason for it is that Linux Mint is designed to be a polished distribution, whereas other distributions might not be. Like, for example, with PC BSD, there was significantly less polish than even on this Linux Mint, but because PC BSD is it's not like the general BSD distributions, they're generally not super strong on the desktop, and PC BSD are breaking more frontiers. They're sort of doing they're doing a more difficult job, as it were. So I'd be more, I'm sort of more impressed with the talent at Show there, but here where it's you're sort of polishing off the edges and making what is effectively a very good out-of-the-box experience, and it really is. Like there are really no big faults, because the out-of-the-box experience has the Mint X theme, and the breakages don't exist there. And of course, this is a beta, so I might be going too hard on the faults that could easily be rectified by a final release candidate, because the quality control in Linux Mint has always been pretty good. Anyway, a promising distribution. I feel that it rightfully deserves its place as one of the more popular distributions. It needs to watch out for Elementary, though. But yeah, pretty good, pretty standard. What you see is kind of what you get here. At this point now, I'm only rambling. And of course, as usual, when I've done a first impressions review, this isn't an in-depth review. This isn't a review of me working on it for several weeks and reporting my findings. This is me having a look at what it's like the last time I've seen it and sort of checking in with it again. And of course, I'm doing this on a virtual machine, so performance is going to be a little bit stunted from what you might experience. But other than that, yeah. Generally a pretty impressive distribution. Linux Mint always pull out a solid contender. No real surprises here. It's just another solid distribution that brought out another release of said distribution. So that's about it from me today. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now.